you got to ask just how stupid Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Speaker of Canada's Parliament, Anthony Rota. I mean, how catastrophically, moronically stupid. They had Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy come address their parliament last Friday to plead for more help for Ukraine to fight the Russian invaders. And the Speaker said, well, guess what? In the audience is a Ukrainian Canadian who did just that in World War II. He fought the Russians, good old Yaroslav Hunka.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
Yes, Canada's Parliament gave Yaroslav a standing ovation, 2 of them in fact, 2, and he was quite moved. You might even think, well, he was probably actually very surprised, because the truth is that he fought the Russians as a soldier of the Galicia Division, otherwise known as the 4th Waffengrenadier Division of the SS. That's the Nazi SS. I mean, what a disaster, because Russia's already crowing about this. You know, they've been saying that Ukraine is dominated by Nazis and fascists and all that, even though the president's Jewish. Poland has now demanded that Hunka be sent over there to face charges over the brutal destruction of Polish towns by the Galicia Division. And the Canadian Speaker of the Parliament was so embarrassed that yesterday he resigned. But the Prime Minister hasn't. He's blaming the Speaker, in between saying sorry, of course.
As I said yesterday, this was deeply embarrassing for the House and for Canada.
Joining me is filmmaker and commentator Ami Horowitz, whose latest current film project now, we hope to see the results of it first, is about Nazi atrocities in World War II. Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for joining me. This is a gift to Russian President Vladimir Putin, isn't it? And his apologists in the US far right. You know, they've been saying that Ukraine has been stuffed with Nazis and fascists.
Yeah, the whole thing was so bizarre, right? I mean, first of all, I'm assuming they didn't do any basic research on this. It highlights a few things, right? First of all, it highlights the fact that Canada has been kind of a war haven for a lot of Ukrainian soldiers who committed war atrocities. It was kind of weird. I didn't even know about it, but this mistake gave the opportunity for people to me to find out some terrible things about Canada. And also, look, it also highlights the fact that Ukraine has not really been a great place for Jews in its history. And it also kind of plays into the narrative of Putin and Russia that this is a war against Nazis when they're giving a standing ovation to Nazis, and you have Zelenskyy giving this guy a fist bump. It's not a good look all the way around. And, you know, I think also what it also underlines is it's weird. Zelensky's done a couple of bizarre things over the last few months. And first of all, they had a trans spokesperson, kind of weird. Like, why would he do that? Ukraine's a very conservative country. But it makes sense when you couple it with, you know, if you listen to his speech at the UN, there was a lot of really weird talk about climate change, a lot of focus on climate change. I'm like, what is Zelenskyy doing? Why is he talking about this? It all starts to make sense when you put things together. Like he's trying to get the left to support him even more, speaking their language, speaking things that attract them to him, even though it obviously doesn't seem real. At the same time, you're making Republicans, who really are the people you're trying to go after, because Republicans control the purse strings when it comes to war in Ukraine, and you're antagonizing them with things that are totally unnecessary. It was really weird. The whole thing's been really weird.
It is weird. You know, I've got to make allowances for Zelenskyy being under huge stress and strain and all that. I've got all that. And we also got to point out in this context, is Jewish. I hardly think that he'd knowingly want to, laud a war criminal who's been fighting for the Nazis. And in fairness to this guy that they singled out, he was, I think, 19 when he joined. There's no record. In fact, the Canadian Commission of Inquiry into War Crimes said, well, this Galicia Division is not implicated in war crimes, shouldn't be indicted as a group. War crimes allegations not been substantiated. But still, it makes me wonder how a decision like that could have been made that would be such a gift. It shows to me a total ignorance of history for a start, and this false idea, of course, that the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, not to push back on you, Andrew, a little bit, but from my understanding, the Galicia unit has in fact been implicated in a bunch of war crimes. I'm not necessarily saying this guy was specifically, but Galicia, I think, was in fact involved with war crimes. And more than that, Galicia was a unit that was actually volunteer. They weren't forced to do it by the Nazis. It is not, no, the Galicia unit is not a good look for Canada at all. And yeah, I'd like to know who did their vetting. Obviously, I'm not saying Canada did this on purpose. Obviously, it was a mistake, but a rather large one, in my opinion.